14, I beg your pardon, the then Garda Commissioner Martin Callanan's appearance before the Justice Committee.
There isn't a whisper anywhere else from any other member of the Garda Síochána about this corruption, this malpractice, and all of those things that are levelled against their fellow officers. Frankly, I think it's quite disgusting. On a personal level, I think it's quite disgusting.
John Wilson, the former Garda whistleblower, is on the line. Martin Callanan was referring to you, John, and Maurice McCabe, the other whistleblower. How do you feel today listening back to that audio?
Well, the report runs to 300 pages, and the most salient part of the report is where Justice Fennelly said that Brian Purcell's visit to Martin Callanan's house was the immediate catalyst for his resignation. I have no doubt that after that meeting had concluded, that Martin Callanan was in no doubt that his position was untenable. In relation to the disgusting remarks, I also believe that Martin Callanan should have been removed from his position after he made those comments, which he described two guard officers who had come forward reporting malpractice within the organisation as disgusting. But having said that, that didn't happen, and then we've ended up now with the Fennelly report. I strongly suspect that if he hadn't retired, that the cabinet would have removed him from office. And I think reading through this report, and I alluded to in an earlier interview this morning, this report brought to mind the famous line from the Godfather movie, I'm going to make him an offer that he can't refuse. And I think that sums it all up. Now, Andy Kenny was on this morning speaking. He was saying that the conclusions of the report speak for themselves. Well, I must agree with you, and they do speak for themselves. And the Irish people are very, very bright, and they will digest the findings of this report in the coming weeks and months.
When you read it, what struck you more? Was it the incompetence of the civil service, or was it the failure to record any of this in any kind of memos or notes or documents?
Well, I can say, the meeting that was held in advance of Brian Purcell's visit to Mr. Callahan's house was of the utmost public importance, but for some reason no notes were taken. And as you'll be aware, Jonathan, notes are taken at meetings of local football clubs all the time around this country, but for some reason no notes were taken. It's very, very easy to blame civil servants, and I'm not here really, they're big enough to defend themselves, but civil servants traditionally have obeyed their political masters. But I think what also is very striking about this report is that it's of the utmost importance also that politics are removed from policing in this country, and that can't happen soon enough.
The Commission found Martin Callanan's diary for 2013. It was missing when it requested it as part of its investigation. Mr. Justice Fennelly said, must be presumed that the diary was included in the bags of personal papers shredded following Mr. Callanan's departure. What do you make of that? Would that be a common thing for a senior Garda's diary to disappear like that?
Well, I find it most unusual, and the fact that SIM cards for phones have gone missing as well. I think it warrants further investigation, Jonathan. Now, it's not unusual for police officers when they retire to kind of shred a lot of documentation, because over a career spanning 30 or 40 years, members accumulate vast quantities of folders and paper. But I think for the Commissioner's diary to have been shredded for 2013, it warrants further investigation. I think that I presume that the protocols in place for ministers of state and government ministers, I would say that those documents, those diaries, are public property. They're not the property of the individual ministers or of the individual Garda commissioners. And I think alarm bells started to ring when I read those conclusions.
Would you have a certain amount of sympathy for Martin Callanan on that night, the 24th? Because what happened was, he was at home, he got a phone call, Brian Purcell turned up at his house. He had stopped the illegal recording in November the previous year. 2 weeks prior to that, he had sent an official letter through a legislative process to the Department of Justice, a letter that those in that crucial meeting in government buildings were unaware of. yet he found himself being told that he was that there was grave concerns, that the Taoiseach had grave concerns about the illegal recording of phone calls. Was he put in a rather unenviable position on that night?
Well, the report also stated that he decided to retire and that he could have decided otherwise. I mean, that doesn't make sense to me. But no, I think that...
Why doesn't it make sense? Why doesn't it make sense, John? I mean, he left with very little choice, it would appear.
Well, you mean the comment about retiring?
Yeah.
No, I mean, it also contained in the report states that the Commissioner had transmitted to him the information that he might no longer have been able to express his confidence in him as Commissioner. Now, I think when the Taoiseach of the country says that he might be able to express confidence and your days are numbered, and I don't think, I mean, that's why I believe Mr. Callanan felt that his position was untenable. Now, in relation to Mary Whelan, the Attorney General, it's blindingly obvious from this report that Mary Whelan and the Taoiseach had no confidence in the then Minister for Justice, Alan Chatham. And in relation to Martin Callanan as an individual, he served over 41 years as a member of Garda Síochána. He will always be remembered for his use of the word disgusting while referring to myself and Maurice McCabe. But on a personal level, I wish him well, Jonathan, and I hope he enjoys his retirement.
In terms of the wider discussion here, the secret recording of telephone calls, you think it didn't just stop there, that there might be other secret recording methods?
Well, listen, the recording of telephone calls, I mean, it was obviously going on for an awful long time. I was aware of that certain calls were being recorded okay, but not to the same extent as was outlined or attempted to come into the public domain, where solicitors' calls were recorded, calls to solicitors to clients. I mean, that's totally unacceptable. Listen, this was the proverbial straw that broke Campbell's back after all the other kind of scandals that have come into the public domain and all the other allegations of wrongdoing by members of Garda Síochána. I think this is the final straw. And I mean, why doesn't Andy Kenny come out straight and say, I was concerned, I wanted, I mean, I believe that the Commissioner, all of the scandals, the various scandals had affected my confidence in him, and I went to him and I just said that I was going to bring it to Cabinet in the near future to discuss his future. I have no doubt that if he hadn't retired, Jonathan, he would have been removed by the Cabinet.
Were there other secret recording methods that you were aware of, John Wilson?
Well, I mean, if you ring a Garda station now, your call will be recorded. But I mean, I was aware of all those type of phone calls, but I wasn't aware of the phone calls that were, the phone calls between solicitors and clients and whatever. I wasn't aware that was going on. To be honest with you, it didn't surprise me when I heard about it first. But I mean, I also mentioned this morning on another station that there were spy rooms in Garda stations, Jonathan, observation rooms where I'm aware I was stationed in Kilmainham, and there was a room adjacent to an interview room, and there was a one-way mirror facing into that room, the same that you see in Law and Order and other programs emanating from the US. That's totally illegal. Now, I never saw them in operation, but I'm quite sure that they exist in more Garda stations than one.
And were they used illegally, do you think, at any stage?
Well, I suspect they weren't built for the fun of it, Jonathan. I mean, the room that I'm aware of, it contained a one-way mirror, and I understand that you could hear what was going on in the adjoining room, and I suspect, and I know that when the recording of interviews with prisoners was first mooted back in the early 90s, early to mid-90s, I know there was a big panic in Kilmainham to dismantle that window, to dismantle that one-way mirror, and the wall was built up.
What confidence do you have in Noreen O'Sullivan now, the current Garda Commissioner, that she will be able to continue to steer the force through this?
I mean, I'm on record, Jonathan, and I first made the call in your programme. I wanted an outsider to come in as Garda Commissioner. I criticised her appointment, not on a personal basis. I mean, I don't mean any of this to be personal. I mean, I'm sure she's a great lady. I have no confidence in her, to be honest with you. I don't believe that the whole lot has changed in the intervening couple of years. I believe for real meaningful reform to be carried out within the Garda Síochána, I still maintain that an outsider will have to be brought in and made Garda Commissioner.
Okay, John Wilson, we'll leave it there. Thanks for taking the time to talk to us. This is News Talk Lunch.